All right, welcome to another late edition of the Saints Happy Hour Patron Spotlight. It is a benefit that we give to the patrons that donate at least $5. They get in a drawing, and we pick a winner a month, and they get to talk to us on a mini podcast. And this week we're joined by Jason Lambert, who is a guy who he is cool. He met me at the airport for the Saints following a Saints game. I think, Jason. I think it was. It wasn't the playoff game. It was a home game during the year, wasn't it?
So it was the Eagles playoff game, and obviously I had seen you on WWL, and I see this guy walking kind of slow, and
Yeah.
recognized your face, thought it might be you.
Yeah, you're like that. And he's the guy that I tell this story in the podcast, but I'll tell it again. He was the guy. He came up to me. He's like, "Ralph, what you doing?" I'm like, you're like, "I listen to the podcast," and I'm like, "How do you know what I look like?" He's like, "Dumbass, you're on TV every Monday," and I was like, "Oh yeah, I am." So I'm not smart. And Jason bought me a beer, and we chatted before the flight. And listen, guys, donate $5. You can be in the drawing. We love it. We love all the patrons. So, Jason, I want to talk to you. You have some cool. You were telling me some cool stories, which they're cool, but they're not. They're like kind of depressing, but interesting in a way. Like you were telling me on DMs on Twitter that like the NFC Championship was like the worst week of your life because you had a $2,000 bet at the Saints to win the NFC at 15-1. So that cost you 30 grand. And you lost your job of 13 years. I mean, we normal Saints, we think we had a bad week because the Saints lost and it still hangs over our head and we still get mad about it. But Jesus Christ, your week, did you just crawl into a bottle for like a month?
That's about all that I could do. It's funny when I got laid off, I'm like, how can you do this before the Super Bowl? Because I thought for sure we go to the Super Bowl. And, you're going to dampen my spirits before, we go to the game. And, of course, I laid down a bet. I want to be able to buy tickets for my family to go. So, flights were arranged. People are texting me, we're up 13-0, texting me which seats we're going to get, different seat locations. And we all know what happened. It was funny. I'm at the airport catching the flight back to Houston. This guy's like, "Man, this has been rough." And I was like, "Yeah, you think you had it rough?" And he's like, "Yeah, well, maybe you had a rougher week than me."
Yeah, I mean,
but, just like the other 2 days, win or lose, we booze, had a couple drinks, and, here we are.
yeah, I mean, Jason, the thing is, it's interesting is, fans of the podcast, I had people that won this. You were kind of like the runner-up to Miss USA in that, like, if the winner doesn't get to fulfill their responsibilities, the runner-up gets the crown. Like, I had people that other people won the drawing, and they're like, "Ralph, thanks. We love the podcast. We'll still pay our $5, but we just can't talk about it." And like, I had the winners, like 2 or 3 of them on the drawings for the last couple months that were like, "I can't talk about it." So I just threw out a thing on Twitter. I was like, "Look, I promised patrons that they could get this benefit. I got to record the show. I feel obligated to do it. I need people that are $5 patrons that want to do it." And Jason was like, I'll do it. So I thank you, Jason. You filled in. But I get it, man. I've had a lot of people saying, "Look, we love the show. We'll get back to it for free agency. We'll get back to it maybe in the summer, but we just can't listen right now." And I had other people say, "Hey, thanks for keeping on, trudging on with the podcast and doing more of them. It's great. It helps us get over the ramp." So this Rams thing, like, it's just gonna. The only way it gets better is if the Saints win a Lombardi. If they don't win a Lombardi with Drew this year or next year or whatever, it's just gonna hang over us. And I think you just it's like a sports like scar or post traumatic. You don't get over it. You just like live with it.
Yeah, and I think that's the way a lot of Saints fans are. I mean, I'm 40 years old, pretty close in age, and I saw the Saints lose to the Vikings, the first playoff game at home, lose to the Eagles, lose to the Falcons, during the Jim Moore days. Primetime makes the interception. He's starting down the field. And yet, something you and Jude said is, no matter what happens, you have to reflect back on that season and say, that was a great season. And so, I've been away. I'm like one of those patrons
Yeah.
you describe it. Free agency's back, and I got my excitement back, and looking forward to what's going to happen next year.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with these playoff losses is you just have to sort of grin and bear it. My thing is the thing that I hate about it is the 2018 season was so fun, and the Tommy Lee Lewis thing will just overshadow it. And it had so many great memories. I mean, Drew Brees the spin move against Atlanta, the Baltimore missing the extra point, the Cleveland game, which was crazy. Atlanta on Thanksgiving. It was just they had so much fun to it, and I hate the fact that it just overshadows. And I feel like even if it had been like a normal playoff loss, it wouldn't hang over it. Like if the Rams had just won and they'd just been better, I think we'd have been mad, but we'd have just been like, oh, the Rams are better. What are you going to do? That shit happens. But now it just sort of hangs over. So the one thing I want to say is, as a former degenerate gambler, Jason, I respect you for not hedging on a $30,000 payday that was coming your way for the NFC Championship. You let it ride. Did you think about hedging at all?
I did, but at that point, I had told a couple friends, and they're like, well, if you're in this far, you just got to see it out. And, like you and like Jude said, I couldn't see any way that they would lose. And,
yeah,
it
and
makes
they're up
it tough.
13, they're up 13 nothing. You're like, I got 30.
Yeah.
You're starting to count the money. Oh my God, that would kill me.
And I mean, it's kind of like, if you go back to 2011, where you felt like this team was better than the 2019 that won the Super Bowl. And honestly, I think it's the best team in the history of the franchise by far. Just if you look at offense and defense, how they played throughout the year. But we know how it happened. So
I think this team by far, it was the best Saints team in history, and the difference is, I don't think 2011 is the best offense I've ever seen. It was historically one of the great offenses of all time in the NFL. But that team's defense was a trash pile. And it was miraged at the end of the year because they played teams that weren't that good, and we thought that it was going to be okay. But it was really a trash pile. The difference between 2018 and 2009, man, is 2009, the Saints had a bunch of injuries in the secondary, and they lost some dudes, but they all got back for the playoffs, and they were healthy going into the playoffs. Remember, Tracy Porter, he was going to be out for the year, but he wasn't. And Greer missed a ton of time, but they all got back, right? And they were healthy and ready to go. 2018, man, Pete breaks his hand in a fucking meaningless game, right? Ben Watson gets appendicitis the week of the game. He can't go. Josh Hill gets a concussion on the first or second series. So they're down both of their tight ends, and they can't run a bunch of formations that they want to run. And, Ramczyk was playing with a bunch of injuries. Armstead was fighting through a torn pec that probably only he's the only human on the planet that would be like, yeah, I'm going to play with a torn pec. So, they had all these things that, it just happened at the wrong time, and they weren't what they were. And I think if they'd have been healthy, they beat the Rams, But it didn't happen. And combined to not being healthy with the shitty call, and here we are.
That was obviously the equalizer in the rematch. I mean, if you got the tight ends, got a healthy O-line. Heck, man, you go back to Dez. My hot take is going to be, I think they signed Dez, and I think he does well this year. I think he's going to have something to prove. I think he's super motivated. He may not have been, as elite as he was for Dallas, but he could have made a little bit of a difference there in that playoff game when he needed another option.
Completely, and also remember the playoff game, Kirkwood couldn't go, and Kirkwood caught the big touchdown the week before on the fourth down against Philadelphia. Yep. Like the Saints, they didn't need that much more, but take away the ref call, which clearly fucked them, but they didn't need that much more. It was just like drip, drip, drip on the sandcastle by the shore, and before you know it, it's eroded. They didn't need that much more to beat the Rams. I think the Dez thing is interesting. I think they're going to bring him back. The question that I have with him is his Achilles. What kind of tear was it? They're saying Rankin's tear. Now, I'm not a doctor, but they say that his Achilles tear is worse because it's higher up on his leg. I don't know what the fuck that's about. I'm not going to pretend to be fucking ER doctor, but they say it's worse, so I'll take their word for it. So I don't know if that's what Dez has, but Okafor came back. Ben Watson was able to come back from a torn Achilles, so it can happen. And, the Saints, wide receiver-wise, if they don't add a veteran guy or they don't draft, they're going to have a spot open for that. And Tommy Lee Lewis is taking a tour. The Saints may say goodbye to him, that opens a spot. That opens a spot for a returner and different things. So, I mean, they still got a lot to do. Let me ask you. Let me ask you this: if I told you that you could have a Super Bowl this year, but Bridgewater's a disaster, and you win a Super Bowl this year, and then you're the Denver Broncos after Peyton Manning retired. Like, you're just going to be in the abyss in mediocrity or worse. Would you take the trophy?
I'll take the trophy in a heartbeat. I'll take that over the Jim Moore days in the 80s and 90s. I mean, I think that's what made it so difficult is how these opportunities to get a trophy, they don't come along very often, and that's I think what kind of stings about last year. So you get a chance in the Super Bowl, you take it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and I mean, look, here's the thing. It's great to see other fan bases just like they're just, especially Atlanta, they're just like bubbling with rage at the Saints doing all these moves and having no cap space, and they're like, how the fuck do the Saints keep doing this? But here's the thing, right? When the Saints realized in 2017 that they had nailed the draft and that they were rolling, in the middle of that year, the Saints looked at it, Jason, I really believe, and they're like, look, we have this awesome draft from 2017 and 2016 that propelled us, and 2017, 2018, and 2019. We have a 3-year window before all these kids have to get paid and before Drew Brees hits his decline. This is our fucking time. We are going for it right now, and whatever happens in 2020, screw it. This is our window. We're doing it. And I believe that's what they thought, and that's what they're doing. And they just, with Breeze, they just kicked the can down the road a little bit further. And Jason, I'm with you. I can't blame them. Like, this is it. If the Saints churn out another 13-3 year, they'll have equaled the window of wins between 2010, and 2011, right? They went 13, 11, and 13 wins from 29 to 2011. If they do 13-3 again, that'll be that same window. The only question is, will they get a championship or won't they? But I don't blame them for going for it. I mean, New England is a freak show of their contention for a decade. Like, that's a freak show. Most teams, you build your team, you get 3 to 5 years of winning and fun. Guys get old, you have to pay them too much, and it goes kaput. And like the Saints doing this, like I have zero trouble with it. I have zero trouble with it if they wanted to pay Cook and they wanted to pay Ansah and really fucking go all in crazy.
Ralph, you're spot on. I mean, if you thought 2017 and 2018 were YOLO, this is the year. If you got, not only do you have the contracts, but if you look at Breeze, and there's a guy, Warren Sharp, Sharp Football on Twitter, he put out a tweet speculating that Drew got hurt during the Falcons game at home because his production went
believe
off.
that. I totally believe that.
Let's face it. I think we got 1 year left of Drew. We got all these contracts. It's 2019 YOLO. So, 2020 beyond, I think, is a different conversation for all the reasons you just mentioned.
Yeah, and then look, I believe Reeves got hurt, and look, that's it's good and it's bad in a way. If he got hurt, that means that he can heal up in the offseason,
Yep.
and his decline will not be. It was an injury. It wasn't just he's old now. The flip side of that is the injury showed that at 40, any little nick is going to last the whole year, and it's a problem because you just don't recover as much anymore, and it can go at any moment, right?
Yeah, we can have a Peyton Manning, Broncos kind of decline, that we all saw in his last year at any time if he gets hurt potentially. And, that's how I'm anxious to see how he comes out because, if it's an injury, then maybe that just explains it. If he wasn't actually injured, then you got to kind of wonder what's going on there.
And look, with Teddy Bridgewater, I believe Teddy Bridgewater can be a very good quarterback post-Breeze. People may argue with me, but I like that. But I'll tell you one thing. If Breeze got hurt and had to miss 3, 4, 5 weeks and the Saints are rolling, Teddy Bridgewater you'll thank fucking God that you have him. And that would be, you know what would be, it would be uncomfortable and weird, but you know what would be, it would be great, I think, for the Saints long term, is if like they would go 12-4 and Breeze would miss a month and Teddy Bridgewater would rock in that month. Breeze comes back, looks good again. Saints win the Super Bowl, and Drew Brees is like, all right, clearly I'm 40. I got hurt. I missed a month. You know what? I'm leaving on top. Then fans would be like, fuck yeah, Teddy Bridgewater. He played great for that month. The Saints went 3-1. He's awesome. The Saints franchise him. And then there's no question of the fan base, like, is he good? Is he not? I don't want him. Like, we're all behind him. That, to me, would maybe be the best case scenario for the Saints for 2019, but it would be weird and it could get awkward. So I mean, I'm a Bridgewater believer. Where are you on Bridgewater?
Yeah, I think to build on your optimism, if he gets the whole training camp and Breeze does get nicked up, maybe that gives Peyton a little bit of confidence to sit Breeze for a couple weeks, hand it over to Bridgewater, let Breeze get healthy, which, you got to wonder how much confidence they had in Bridgewater last year, no matter what they say. So I'm optimistic, but also the scenario you just described reminds me of Brock Osweiler when he came in for Peyton Manning. So you never really know until they go a full 16 weeks and they go through the kind of the rigor of the season and the ups and downs and perform in playoffs. I mean, we've seen so many quarterbacks that are good in the regular season, but to perform well in the playoffs, that really is what, kind of differentiates your elite quarterback. So I am optimistic with Bridgewater, but, there's a long way to go there, I think.
Yeah, and look, with Bridgewater, if his field goal kicker makes a kick, he would have won a playoff game in Minnesota. So I like
True.
him. And I will say this about Bridgewater: I think he's going to play a ton in the preseason. And I'll tell you this, and this is from Andrew on a phone call that we didn't tape for the many podcasts we did this week. And if you pay $7, you get the daily podcast. But Andrew said to me, and I totally agree with him. He's like, every good preseason game Teddy Bridgewater has this year, you can add $5 to $6 million to his salary for 2020. So, like, if he rocks it in 2 preseason games, and the Saints want to keep him after Drew Brees retires, they're going to have to pay him $20 million a year. Like, and if you think that's crazy, just look at Nick Foles or Osweiler, like you talked about. Once teams start seeing actual tape of Teddy Bridgewater looking good, his price is just going to go up, 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 which is a good thing. I mean, I think the Saints have played this as well as they can. But Jason, before we get out of here, which like the $30,000 bet, it just sticks in my mind. Like I would have been doxing referees on Twitter. My whole TV career and podcast career would be over. I would have just been a ball of rage. How you comported yourself to not do illegal activities and death threats against people and the world, I commend you, seriously. But
yeah,
final thought, like,
hey, that's where we are.
I always want to say to the patron spotlights that we've done, what makes you listen to the show and what makes you want to support us? Like, there's a lot of Saints podcasts out there. There's a lot of NFL podcasts out there. What makes you listen to us, gravitate towards us? Because we appreciate it.
Yeah, so I think you and Juge and Dave, I mean, you have a nice chemistry. You're obviously, very articulate. And when I listen to, you do the podcast, it almost sounds like me and a bunch of my friends talking. Maybe y'all. And I think, the insight that you provide, and you're very knowledgeable, but then also it's funny. And so, the jokes make it a little bit different. It's a podcast of fans who are knowledgeable, but also, have a little fun doing it. Don't take it too seriously. And so, that's, I think, makes your podcast a little bit different. That's why I enjoy it so much.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like over the 10 years that we've done it, I feel like I have like me and Kevin started it and we were both ridiculous. But I feel like when Dave and Andrew joined, they were more serious when they started out. But now I've sort of infected them and they are totally about the jokes. And of course, Andrew's still about the analytics and breaking down the film, but the jokes are sort of our number one thing. And I feel like that's been my proudest moment, is that all the co-hosts, like, we're all about the jokes, and like whenever something happens with the Saints, everybody's first initial thing on our group text is not sort of like the analytics and break it down seriously. It's all like, what's funny about this? Oh shit, Sean Payton broke a fire alarm in Cincinnati. Oh, that's funny as fuck. Like, that's where our group texts go, and it makes me so proud that, and people on Twitter are like getting the jokes and firing us like, oh my god, I can't wait till you make fun of this and that makes us happy. And we love the community. But Jason, I can't thank you enough, guy, for doing this and helping me out in a pinch. And I don't know what to say about 30,000. I feel like that would be like the equal to a death in my family. Like, I don't even know what to say.
So I think it's double or nothing for 2019. I'll just leave it there.
My wife is going back to Vegas in June. The problem with the Saints is their odds aren't good. So, like, I mean, and good in a sense of you have to bet a lot more to win, because I think right now they're like 6-1, which is like, you know.
Yeah.
So I'll.
Yeah, they're not good. They're not good odds. Might not take them this year, but you know, hey, I think we got another year of Breeze to look forward to, so we'll see what 2019 brings us.
Well, Jason, if you go double or nothing on your bet, we all will be rooting for you. Thanks to you for supporting us, as always. Thanks to everyone who supports us. If you want to be on the Patron Spotlight, donate at least $5 a month. You'll be in the Patron Spotlight, and you'll get a chance to get a free beer koozie, which we're going to do to everyone that is a patron, subscriber, and supporter that donates at least $3.28. If you do that and you get on Patreon by the end of by May 1st, you get the beer koozie. Any patron that's already on Patreon, you'll get a beer koozie too. So the short of it is, if you're on Podbean, get to Patreon. Jason, thanks for doing this, guy. Thanks to all the supporters. We'll see you next time on the Patron Spotlight.